early loss to Georgia. Ben Bolch, LA Times, joins us. Ben, we just had a writer that covers Illinois. That's a great story. TCU, that's a great story. How much of a surprise is what we see from UCLA up until this point?
Well, I think it's a surprise nationally. I think those who had tracked the program kind of knew something like this was kind of coming, just based on when you have as many experienced players at key positions like UCLA does, fifth-year starting quarterback, fourth-year running back, some other key guys who are graduate transfers, it kind of sets up for this kind of season. Now, obviously, UCLA has not been in this mix for this kind of success in 2 decades, but I think those of us who kind of cover the program and are around a lot saw the potential for something like this.
How fortuitous was it that this has happened this season with the announcement of the move to the Big Ten and Lincoln Riley's arrival at your crosstown rival in USC, that UCLA is making waves so that they can get some of these recruits to stay home in LA as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point, because with USC's resurgence, if UCLA had an average or down year, it really tilts the recruiting landscape in USC's favor. And also, you know, it's a showcase for UCLA on the national stage, with people in the Midwest and East Coast now paying closer attention to UCLA, knowing that they're headed to the Big Ten. You know, they want to see if they're going to be an option for somewhere where high school kids can go play who live in those areas. So, yeah, it's the perfect time for UCLA to have this kind of season and put itself on the map.
What kind of improvements have you seen from Dorian Thompson-Robinson? He was a good player prior to this year for anybody that was watching UCLA and paying attention to college football on the West Coast, but he's obviously burst onto the scene in a different type of way. Why do you think that is, and what are kind of the points behind that?
Well, the big thing is consistency. I mean, we saw in the last 3 games of last season, he was playing as well as anybody in the country. Had that big hurdle in the SC game, helped them put up 62 points in the rivalry game. But the big question was, could he do it over the course of the season? And so far, he hasn't really had any hiccups. He's played at a super high level for 6 consecutive games, and if he can keep that going, UCLA is probably going to win a lot more games.
So the Pac-12, and Paul brought up the tumultuous summer, good news for USC and UCLA. It seems like there's some people stepping up. UCLA has won. Utah just beat USC. Oregon has bounced back. How much right now is there a pride factor in the conference that, man, we just got to get better?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a conference that hasn't put anybody in the playoffs since 2016, since Washington got there and lost pretty handily in the semifinal. So, you know, it's they want to plant their flag. Obviously SC and UCLA are leaving, but they're still part of this, and they want to go out, putting this conference on top. It's taken so many hits, and deservedly so, in recent years. But there's some real quality depth up there at the top of those 4 teams you talked about. I mean, there's still, you could make a case that any one of those 4 not only could win the conference, but could be worthy of a playoff spot. So, right now, as it's positioned, the Pac-12 is in the mix to make some noise at the highest level of college football.
Have you seen the attendance start to uptick, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've seen, season high crowds at the Rose Bowl 2 weeks in a row. Obviously, I think you're alluding to the fact that it was a national story early in the year, how small the crowds were. Troy Aikman took the shot at his alma mater. We had the 2 smallest crowds UCLA's ever had in the history of the Rose Bowl. But, I think it's building, and it's only going to continue to build, especially if they can beat Oregon this week, move to 7-0. You're going to see some. They've had some tarps come off. They could come off, and get closer to sellout level that they're kind of accustomed to when the program's rolling.
Ben, in terms of big anticipated matchups or just highly ranked matchups, where does this rank most recent times and under Chip Kelly, this Oregon game?
Oh, it's the biggest by far, and that's the great thing about you keep winning. It basically sets up the biggest game of your time at UCLA every week, especially if you stay undefeated in the mix for not only the Rose Bowl but the college football playoff. So the thing that's interesting about this week to me though is it's Oregon, right? I mean, that's what Chip Kelly's known for, is his success at Oregon. So if he can go back to Oregon and beat the Ducks when they're both top 10 teams, maybe we can start talking about Chip Kelly, having done something besides what he did at Oregon, right? Because that's what everybody talks about when they talk about Chip Kelly's success he's had at Oregon. But, if he has a season he wants and finishes this one out strong, people can start talking about what he did at UCLA.
Greg brought up Dorian Thompson-Robinson, what a year he's having. What about Zach Charbonnet and what he's put up?
Yeah, he's quietly, which is a great word for him because he's so reserved and quiet. He's quietly put himself in the mix for a Heisman-type season. He had almost 200 yards in that huge victory over Utah. Pretty much, is a 100-yard guy plus every week, and does it with UCLA going to more of a pass-oriented attack this season, which makes it all the more impressive. But, yeah, he's the perfect complement that you need with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and that's why, one of your first questions, that it wasn't so much of a surprise to me, because when you have a Zach Charbonnet to go with what else they have on offense, you're going to score a lot of points.
You mentioned, or Paul asked about the stadium attendance, and it's L.A., we get it, and it's unfortunate that it's not better, although it's getting that way now that they are getting this much attention. What is, if you thought about every day on sports talk radio in L.A., how much of it is a percentage of college football with USC, UCLA, or anything college football at all?
You mean how much are they talking about it on the local station?
Yeah.
You know what? It's funny. Not much at all. I barely ever do any local radio spots. Pretty much all my spots are from visiting teams, if you can believe that. This is a Dodgers town, a Lakers town. Now we have the Rams and Chargers. They've kind of taken over the football landscape alongside with USC football. So UCLA is still, considerably operating in the shadows. But let me tell you, if they win this Oregon game, it's going to be a whole new ball game with potentially a top 5 or 6 team. I think that's going to be kind of the turning point to get them in the spotlight.
Yeah, that means you bring out the glitz and glamour in LA, right? They want to be at whatever matters.
Yeah, absolutely right. And especially, now that the Dodgers are out of the playoffs, Lakers look like they might not be very good again this year. USC just lost. So, it's time for UCLA. It's set up for them to really take that next step and get some of that shine.
Yeah, that Dodgers, that's got to hurt. 111 wins, and they're done. Wow.
Yeah, very reminiscent to me. I always remember that great Seattle Mariners team back in 2001 that everybody thought was just going to plow through everybody, and they stumbled in the first round. Truly stunning.
Thank you, Ben. Appreciate your time. Always glad to have you on. Ben Bolch, LA Times on UCLA.